Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time visiting, my name is Matt and I hope you're having a great day. I know that I am, because in this video we are going to be comparing the Minelab SDC 2300 against the Garrett Axiom. Now the Minelab SDC 2300 has been on the market for a while and is pretty much known as the entry-level pulse induction metal detector strictly dedicated to finding gold. On the other hand, we have the Garrett Axiom, which has been on the market for about a year, but is still pretty much considered the new kid on the block as far as pulse induction gold detectors go. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over some of the main features for each of these machines, but what we're also going to do is take varying sizes of gold and bury them at different depths to see how each of these machines hears the target, and maybe a machine will hear the target just fine and maybe another one won't hear it at all. So that's the comparison that we're going to be doing today. And in this video, we're only going to be using the 11-inch monocoil on the Garrett Axiom so that we're getting the closest comparison, because the SDC 2300 has a monocoil built in. So the Minelab SDC 2300 retails for roughly $3,600, and you can buy them used for cheaper than that. But brand new, these are running for $3,600. And a couple of the things that make this a really great machine are that you really just need to turn it on and it's ready to go. It has really good automatic ground balancing, and really all you need to do is adjust the sensitivity setting here depending on the type of ground that you're working in. Most people just run this thing totally maxed out, and in my experience that has been fine, but you might end up in a really heavily mineralized area where you might need to dial this back. One of the other really great things about the SDC 2300 is that it's really easy to fold up. So just like that, this thing is folded up, and this can easily slip into a backpack. If you have a long hike where you need to get out to a place that you're metal detecting, it's really nice to just be able to throw this in your backpack. It makes it a lot easier for hiking, and that's a really big plus on this machine. A couple other things I like about the 2300 is that it's waterproof, which is really great, and it has a really long battery life. This will go for a couple days at least without having to change the batteries, and if you have to, you can swap out the batteries out in the field. You can also do that with the Garrett Axiom. You just have to put in this adapter that comes with it. Another thing to keep in mind about the 2300 though is that it has its own special headphone jack here, so you'd have to get an adapter if you wanted to use a headphone with a 1/8 or 1/4 inch jack. One more thing I want to comment on about the 2300 is this machine's actually pretty heavy. This big box right here weighs quite a bit, where all the controls are. So it can be a little tiring after a full day. Your biceps and your arms will get pretty tired. And this is definitely heavier than the Axiom and quite a few other machines that are out on the market. So moving on to the Garrett Axiom, what I really like about this right out the gate is how light it is. This machine is super light. You can swing this thing all day long and you really won't get that tired, unless you have like the 16-inch coil on it, in which case it's going to get heavy. Any metal detector is going to be heavy once you put a really big coil on the end of it. It's a really small form. It's really sleek, which I really like. And it doesn't fold up like the 2300, but you can collapse it down pretty short. So I'll show you what that looks like. So this is it folded up, and it can actually shorten by a few more inches. I just have some straps on here to hold my cable in place, but you can get this folded up nice and short. You could throw it on your backpack if you wanted to. So this is still pretty nice. This is pretty compact. And as far as the price goes for the Garrett Axiom, this retails for $4,000, so roughly $400 more than the 2300. Another feature that the Garrett Axiom has that the 2300 does not have is that it has wireless compatibility. So you can get the wireless headphones for the Garrett Axiom. Depending on which package you get, it's going to come with wired or wireless headphones. And with the SDC 2300, it does not have built-in wireless. You'd have to get an adapter for that. So that's just a short comparison of the two machines. I will be doing a really in-depth video on the Garrett Axiom and how I set it up, what settings I use, and how I run it. Once I have more hours on this machine, I want to make sure that I really understand it before I put a video like that out. So let's go put some gold in the ground and we'll see how these two machines compare with varying sizes of gold. So these are the gold targets that we'll be detecting today with the Garrett Axiom and the 2300. You can see we have some pretty small pieces here. I'll put the sizes of all these as we dig them up. I think this is 0.1 gram, and this might be about 3/4 of a gram. And we're gonna go ahead and put these in the ground right here. Now we are actually out in a hydraulic pit, so we are working in ground that's the closest to the actual conditions that we would be digging in when we're looking for gold like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is check to make sure that we don't have any targets in our test area here and that we have a clean test area. So it sounds clean with the Garrett Axiom. Let's go ahead and check with the 2300. Okay, and no targets with the 2300 either. And our first test target is going to be this piece of gold right here. I'll go ahead and put the weight of this piece on the screen, but you can see that it's a pretty round, chunky piece. Let's put it in the ground and see how it sounds on these machines. And just to make sure that these tests are as comparable as possible, I'm going to have the Garrett Axiom totally maxed out on its settings with fine gold, max sensitivity, and slow speed, and we're not going to have any ground tracking on so that we're getting the most sensitive settings we can get on the Garrett Axiom. And on the 2300, I'll just have the sensitivity turned up all the way to 5. Okay, so this hole is 5 inches deep. Let's go ahead and put this target down in here, and we're going to fill it back up. And I'll make sure to pack it down, try and get it as close to natural conditions as we can get it. And the first machine we're going to detect with is going to be the 2300. So the 2300 hears that target very clearly. Definitely a target that I would dig up, no question. And you can hear it go low and high. Okay, let's check with the Axiom. We got the Axiom 11-inch monocoil. All right, that hears it very clearly. It's a nice high-low tone. I would say that that is a little more distinct than I was hearing it on the 2300. So what I'd like to do now is go ahead and bury this target a little bit deeper. I want to get to the point to where one of these machines or both of these machines can just barely hear this target. Okay, so the hole is about 7 inches deep now. I've got the same target in here. Let's see if that changes how this sounds on both of these machines. Now we're testing at 7 inches deep with the 2300. Okay, so it sounds like I accidentally may have dug something up. So why don't we go ahead and see what this is before we test our target. So this is what it sounds like on the Minelab 2300, whatever this target is. Let's see what it sounds like on the Axiom. So this is what it sounds like on the Axiom. So let's see if we can find out what this is. So I think it's just a tiny piece of iron. This here, let's see if it sticks to the magnet. Yep, and it does. So both of those machines heard it. It did sound like the Axiom heard it a little bit better as far as the tone was a lot more clear as far as how it came in and out, but pretty darn close. Now let's see if the Axiom hears the target that we are originally trying to hear. The test target. Okay, so I had to move the camera back because I think I was getting a little interference there. So it does sound like the Axiom is hearing it if you listen very closely. So you can hear it go high-low. And you have to swing it real slowly. If I go too fast, you don't hear it. So you gotta go real slow. Yeah, all I'm hearing is just the normal fluctuation in the threshold. Nothing that's coming from that gold nugget down there. So for this piece of gold right here, it does seem like the Garrett Axiom is just getting a slightly bit more depth than the 2300. Again, you have to swing the coil very slowly to hear it, but the Axiom does hear it, where it seems like the 2300 is not hearing that target. Our next target is going to be this piece here. It looks like it's about roughly half the size of that last piece, and I'll go ahead and put weight right here on the screen. Let's go ahead and bury this and compare the two. So we'll go ahead and put our target there at 5 inches deep. Make sure it's nice and compacted. Okay, now we're checking with the 2300. And I'm not hearing anything at all. Just a regular fluctuation in the threshold. And I'm trying to see if I can get it to make a sound. I really want to be able to hear it. And I'm not hearing anything on the threshold. So let's go ahead and see how the Axiom does. So I'm hearing the faintest change in the threshold. And it's actually getting louder now. So I would chase that target. And I just tried to balance the target out using the ground balance, and the target didn't balance out. And that's a way that I'll distinguish from a hot rock or some mineralization in the ground, is I'll use the ground balancing to see if it's going to balance out that target, and that usually tells me if it's something that I don't need to chase. But if I ground balance it and I still hear the target, then I'll dig it. Okay, so once again, the Garrett Axiom is hearing a signal at a depth that the 2300 did not. So let's go ahead and get our third target. And our third target is going to be this little piece right here. Now, I actually found this piece with the Axiom. This might actually be the very first piece that I ever found with the Axiom right here. So I'll go ahead and put the weight on the screen here, and we'll bury it, and we'll again compare the two machines. So this one I'll bury at 3 inches, and that might still be too deep. Okay, we had that target buried at 3 inches. Let's see if the 2300 hears it. And the 2300 does hear it, and it does seem like it's hearing it closer to the front of the coil. So that's where it first starts to hear it, and then once the center of the coil gets over that same point where the front of the coil is, it stops making a noise. So right there, you can't really hear it. And then I'll back the coil up, and you can just barely hear it. All right, now let's see how the Axiom does. All right, and right away we are hearing the target. And it's getting a little louder and a little more crisp towards the center of the coil. And right away I'm noticing that we're actually hearing this target all the way from the front of the coil all the way to the back, which is a little bit different than what we were seeing on the 2300. On the 2300, we were only hearing it on the first half of the coil. So we're not getting as much area of depth on the 2300 as we are on the Axiom. Because if I'm walking through the area that I'm metal detecting, I want to be able to hear the target all the way from the front to the back of my coil, the entire footprint of my coil. So we're getting more depth over the entire area of the coil compared to the 2300. So in this case, I would say that the Axiom 11-inch mono coil is hearing this target better than the 2300. So I feel like that was a pretty controlled, comparable test there where we could really see how each of these machines performs in the exact same conditions. Again, I had both of those machines totally maxed out. The Axiom does have a little more complicated settings, as in there's a lot more things that you can change. So that is something to keep in mind when you're using these two machines. On the 2300, all you have to do is turn it on and go. Whereas on the Axiom, you do have to turn it on, you have to mess with the settings, you're gonna have to ground balance it a lot, but that just comes with the territory when you start getting into those really sensitive machines. Now, if you were to ask me the question if I think the Axiom is better than the 2300, I think that's really kind of dependent on what's important to you. If we're just talking about how the Axiom compares in sensitivity and hearing the gold, which is obviously kind of the point of these machines, then from the test that we did today, I would have to say that the Axiom outperformed the 2300. Not by a huge margin, but just a little bit, just enough to be able to hear that gold that maybe the person with the 2300 didn't hear, and you'd be finding gold that maybe somebody missed. So if you're in the market for one of these machines, it's really kind of up to you to decide, is the Axiom worth $400 more to you than the 2300? One thing to keep in mind with the Axiom is that you're going to get two coils with that machine. It's going to come with an 11-inch coil and a 13-inch coil. And on that 13-inch coil, theoretically, you're going to be getting more depth, and you're also going to be able to cover more area quicker with a bigger coil. On the 2300, you just have that 8-inch coil that comes with it. Of course, they do make aftermarket coils that you can put on there, but then you're talking about spending hundreds of more dollars anyways for those extra coils. If you are considering getting one of these machines, please consider using the affiliate links that I have down in the description. It gives me a little bit of a kickback when you order it, and it doesn't cost you anything at all. There's no extra to it, but I definitely do recommend looking elsewhere to see if you can find a better deal, because I know that these are expensive machines and you're making a big investment. So if you can find a better deal, go for it. But please do consider using those links down there, because it really does help support the channel. If you found this video helpful and you feel like you learned something, or it helped you make a better decision on which machine you want to buy, please consider liking this video. If you do like prospecting or the outdoors or metal detecting, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss the next video when it comes out, and I'll see you on the next adventure.